Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others, Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" And Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And Jesus sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." Then he called a crowd with his disciples, and he said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it." Mark 8:27 to 34. Who do you say I am? You are the Messiah. The Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. What a roller coaster of encounters and emotions. First, the thrilling and exciting and sensational revelation that Jesus was, in fact, the Messiah. Perhaps they had been wondering about that for some time, speculating, guessing, whispering amongst themselves, but not actually daring to believe it. But now it had been confirmed. Can you imagine their rabbi, the Messiah? The Messiah, the long awaited Messiah? Oh, the glory, the majesty, the triumph of the days to come. But in the next moment, the terrible prediction of suffering and persecution and rejection and even death. And then the warning that those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for the sake of the gospel will save it. What a roller coaster of events and emotions. Across the distance of time and culture, it is hard for us to guess what went through the disciples' minds when Jesus confirmed that, yes, in fact, he was the Messiah. Perhaps they had visions of future glory, visions of power and recognition. Perhaps they pictured themselves elevated in the sight of their family and friends. Perhaps they imagined the astonished comments of their neighbors and how the neighbors would say, "Well, look at the sons of Zebedee now. Well, they sure made good. Best friends with the Messiah. Who would have thought?" Perhaps the disciples had even visions of riches coming their way, riches and treasures and wealth and fame, and enough money to throw a party for the whole village, and the roof of the family home finally fixed, and a big dowry for the sister, and a big great wedding banquet. Perhaps they had visions of honor and status, of being chosen for positions of leadership. Elsewhere in the Gospel of Mark, we read how the disciples argued amongst each other about who was the greatest and how they approached Jesus and requested seats of honor in his kingdom. And why not? We know that at the time of Jesus, there was an expectation in the air that soon the Messiah would come. And this long expected Messiah would be a great political leader, a descendant of King David. He would be just like King David, only greater. He would be a charismatic spiritual leader, but also a great military leader, just like King David. He would make Israel great again. He would liberate the land, remove Roman occupation, and restore the glory of Jerusalem. He would make the land secure and bring peace to all. It was a beautiful and compelling vision. And the idea that this vision had finally been realized in Jesus, the rabbi of Nazareth, this must have been a breathtaking thought. But then comes the bucket of ice water dumped on all these lovely dreams. No future glory, no power, no riches, no special recognition, and instead rejection, suffering, and death. And worse, when Peter says, "No, no, no, this must never happen to you," he is severely rebuked. Peter is rebuked, scolded like a schoolboy. What a harsh response when all he wanted was to protect his beloved teacher. What was wrong with Peter's intervention? What was wrong even with visions of the glory to come? The problem was not that the vision was too great, but that the vision was, in fact, too small, too limited, because it was basically a dream of a shift in power. Now, there is nothing wrong with desiring a shift in power or even working towards such a shift. After all, this has been the life work of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many others who gave their life to bring a greater measure of justice to our world. But in the end, a shift in power is just that, a shift in power. And God's dream for the world is bigger than that. If all we have is a shift in power, then the world is still the world with its never ending struggles for power. God's vision for the world is bigger than that and bigger than our human concepts. It is a vision of ultimate wholeness, beauty, peace, a new heaven, a new earth. This vision arises not from military strength, but from Christ on the cross. In the letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul explains it this way. When I came to you, brothers and sisters, I did not come proclaiming the mystery of God to you in lofty words or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. And I came to you in weakness, and in fear, and in much trembling. My speech and my proclamation were not with plausible words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of the Spirit, so that your faith might rest not on human wisdom, but on the power of God. Yet among the mature, we do speak wisdom, though it is not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age who are doomed to perish, but we speak God's wisdom, secret and hidden, which God decreed before the ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age understood this, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what no eye has seen, no ear heard, no human heart conceived, what God has prepared for those who love Him. These things God has revealed to us through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches everything, even the depth of God. Now we have received not the Spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we may understand the gifts bestowed on us by God. Now, this sounds all very otherworldly, and there has been a recurrent temptation in some parts of Christianity to withdraw from the world. But we are not meant to withdraw from the world, but neither are we meant to become one with the world. We are meant to be in the world, but not of the world, to work with God for peace and justice, and to look to God and not the world as the source of our strength. And so Jesus had to say no to Peter's vision of a future full of glory and power and might. He had to say, in fact, I am not the kind of Messiah who will fix everything for you and then hand you a brand new world on a platter. But that does not mean that Jesus left the disciples empty handed. He did give them a gift. And the gift was this: He gave them the path that leads to true life. It is a path that everyone can follow. But it's not an easy path. It may even be a costly path. At times, it might test them to the outer limits of their strength. But as they walk this path, they will be transformed. They will be transformed. They will become wiser and freer, more courageous, more compassionate. It is a path that encourages collaboration and community building and trust and listening and empowerment. And in this way, the path is a gift, not only for those who walk it, but for the community around them and even for the world. Like the disciples, we are likewise invited to follow this path and to discover that it is our life. With this, I continue to wish you a holy and blessed Lent. Lent where you discover the path that leads to life. Amen.